The story of homes, of how a people live, is the story of the foundation on which a nation is built. The United States is the most prosperous nation of modern times. It promises to every citizen equal rights to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet, 10 million American families, 1/3 of the human resources of American democracy, are today living in slums. Wherever flies and garbage and children must occupy the same backyard at the same time, wherever dwellings are rotting or are fire traps, wherever privy vaults are open or water supplies are unsanitary, wherever too many people live squeezed in one room or too many families live jammed together, there are the slums. Yes, the slums are in the big city, but they are also in the small city, in the village, and even on the farm. Slums are everywhere, north, south, east, and west, in your town and in mine. A national health survey made by the United States Public Health Service found that home conditions were far less sanitary in towns of under 25,000 population than in the big cities. They also found that sickness, delinquency, and the normal growth of children are closely related to the conditions of the homes in which they live. Slums cost money. They drive up the taxpayers' costs for fire, police, and health protection. They drive down the city's income. First, because they rarely pay their own taxes. Second, because they constantly lower values and tax income from neighboring properties. Third, because they put to flight such people and such businesses as can afford to pay taxes. Jacksonville, Florida, for example, is an average American city. Like hundreds of other progressive communities, it has its own slum problems. More than 7,000 of this city's families are compelled to live in unfit homes and neighborhoods. Let's visit a while with a Jacksonville family caught in unfit housing, one which is typical of low-income families throughout America. That's not a particularly handy water supply for a woman who cooks, washes, and cares for a large family. The children's food is unprotected from vermin or heat, and since there is no sink, the dishwater goes out the window. That is handy, but it isn't very sanitary. Nearby are other dumping grounds, excellent places to cradle an epidemic which might ravage the neighborhood or the entire city. This mother's day is a long one, and her workshop, the kitchen, is not designed to make her work either pleasant or easy. At times, she must call for help from younger hands. And then it's tough to leave a game, even where bare feet are always in danger and the air is not always sweet. The conditions which surround this mother's family, you understand, are not of her own making. They are the results of circumstances beyond her control. And though she may work her heart out, the menace of disease still sits at the table. And the specter of fire still lurks around the decaying chimney. Growing up means going to work, a good old American custom. But returning home at the end of the day does not always mean rest. There is, for example, a thing to be done in this, the family bathroom, before baby can be put to bed. To keep clean in this home, without a bathtub, without hot water, without privacy, is a weary struggle. Here, an even more important sanitary factor speaks for itself. very much for this father to come home to at the end of each day's work. Sundown and evening meal. The children know nothing different, but possibly mother and father wonder why fate has been so unkind. This is the normal and entirely unaltered daily life of a low-income family in Jacksonville. Its way of life is typical of the life of millions that are compelled to live in slums throughout America. Seems a pretty hopeless situation, doesn't it? Hopeless also for romance and the founding of a new home. But the city of Jacksonville has found a way to deal with its slums, and what it is doing illustrates what hundreds of other American cities are already doing, what every community, large or small, can do. A new agency of local government, the Housing Authority of Jacksonville, meets with the mayor to receive the telegram from the United States Housing Authority granting a loan for their low-rent housing project. The USHA, under Administrator Nathan Strauss, will lend a local authority up to 90% of the cost of a project. Remaining funds are borrowed locally. To clear bad slums, you must tear them down. You cannot tear them down unless you provide other dwellings to rehouse the people who live in slums. That is why public housing is the only practical way to handle the problem. The United States Housing Act requires the elimination of one slum dwelling for every new low-rent home that is built. The buildings demolished may be on the site of the new housing project or off. They may be tenements or shacks. Decisions as to which dwellings are to be torn down and where the new project shall be located, like all other decisions, are made by the local authority. Public housing under the USHA is a decentralized activity. The local authority designs, builds, and manages its own projects from beginning to end. USHA technicians assist local planners. Public housing demands sunlight for every room, proper ventilation, open spaces, new standards which cost nothing but require new methods of design. Public housing demands large-scale and ingenious planning. Suitable sites for low-rent housing are hard to find in the hilly city of Pittsburgh. The hilltops are the cheapest land and harbored some of the city's worst slums. Because of this, the Housing Authority of Pittsburgh has chosen 3 hilltop sites which must be graded before they can be made into a community asset. These large-scale public housing projects encourage new and less expensive methods of construction. These monster machines were specially built for this spectacular reclamation of Pittsburgh's eyesores. Dirt and small rocks are dumped into a pit, connected with a special conveyor. Larger pieces of rock, sometimes weighing several tons, go tumbling over the cliff and past the conveyor that carries the lighter material out into the center of the valley. Public housing is an investment. It creates new wealth. Of course, it clears slums and provides decent homes for low-income families. But it also puts men and money and materials to work, as on this project. It demands the services of contractors and architects. It steps up the production and shipment of building materials, fixtures, equipment. It furnishes sound investment opportunities for capital. It increases and protects the value of surrounding real estate. The money it releases stimulates all types of business. Low-rent housing built under the USHA program is low-cost housing. USHA-assisted projects have cut net cost about 1/5 below the cost of private builders in the same cities. This has been accomplished through mass purchase of materials, new methods of design and construction, no strike, steady wage agreements with labor. To labor, public housing means jobs. The initial USHA program alone provides a year's work for 335,000 men, 135,000 on the sites, and 200,000 in industries supplying the materials and transportation. These building craftsmen all get paid prevailing wages. Of every dollar spent on public housing projects, about 29 cents are paid in full-scale workmen's wages. Labor's cooperation with public housing has set standards of freedom from strife that are showing the way to the entire construction industry. But let's go back for another visit to our friends, the family in Jacksonville. As Mother struggles to make something grow beside her house, a visitor arrives. Visitors come but very seldom to this home. This one introduces himself as an investigator from the Housing Authority of Jacksonville, and there are some questions he wishes to ask her. Here are some of the notations the investigator actually made of this interview. 8 persons living in 3 small rooms. 5 sleep in 1 room. No tub or shower. Toilet facilities inadequate and unhealthy. Oil lamps. Unsanitary conditions detrimental to health and morals of children. House in very bad condition and infested with rats, roaches, mosquitoes, flies, and bed bugs. In due time, the postman brings a letter from the Housing Authority of Jacksonville. It informs her that after reviewing her application for a home in Brentwood Park, the authority will accept the family as a tenant. A happy day it is for every family that can escape from the misery of a slum home and environment. Tenants of public housing must be selected from families living in substandard houses and who cannot afford to pay private enterprise for decent homes. USHA-aided housing cannot possibly offer competition to private builders or to private landlords who deal in decent housing. The average shelter rents, exclusive of utilities, in projects built under the USHA program range from about $6 per family dwelling per month in localities where construction and operating costs are low, to a maximum of about $17 per family dwelling per month where costs are high. These are lower than the average slum rents in the same communities and will accommodate families with incomes range $50 a year to an average of about $1,150 a year. Remember this? The mother does. The equipment provided is simple, designed solely to make possible clean and healthy living with the least effort and at lowest cost. A home such as this does more for a young lady than just inspire her to fix up her hair a bit. Clinics and hospitals, supported by taxpayers' money, will never be crowded with patients who sleep in clean, airy, sunny rooms such as this one. It costs the federal government only about $25 a year per person to help house such families as this one we have visited in decent places instead of slums. The one thing essential to clear slums and to provide low-income families with decent homes and space for play and community life is the annual subsidy from the federal government to the local housing authority. The city also does its share, making annual subsidies of not less than 1/5 of those from the federal government, generally through exempting the project from local real estate taxation. Public housing, like public schools, improves the quality of large numbers of our citizens and so serves the general welfare. To help pay for these public housing projects in all parts of the country with public funds is therefore an investment no less sound than to pay for public education with public funds. There was a time in these United States when only private schools existed. Those who could not pay went without education. There was a time when each family provided its own sanitary facilities, its own water supply, and when most roads were privately built and operated for profit. As the nation grew in size, in complexity, and in understanding, the public accepted responsibility for education, for sanitation, for roads, and many other public necessities, and the general welfare improved immeasurably. Public housing is therefore in the best American tradition. Every dedication in the United States of a public low-rent housing project is a rededication of our democracy to the principle that all men are created equal.